welcome back to the Planning Pulse podcast. With you, as always, Matt Harvison, the Principal Practice Lead for all things Workday Adaptive Planning at Ikorio. With me today is a first-time guest, but I'm sure you're going to be seeing a lot of him this year, Tom Trammel, our Senior Solution Strategist at Ikorio. Tom, how are we doing today?
Yep, I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. I know that we're kicking off a new year and a new series today. New year, we're going into 2026. I'm really excited for all the things that we're going to be bringing you through the Planning Pulse podcast in 2026. But before we do that, I want to hear a little bit about what's on maybe your agenda for 2026. You got any New Year's resolutions, anything like that?
Oh, everybody working out, losing weight, and getting finances in line. Just kind of box standard stuff. Nothing too crazy.
That sounds like the response of somebody who has spent a life in accounting. So we're going to work on that response over time. I'm completely same page with you. I'm working on finances, working on health. Maybe I'm going to try to read a little bit more, maybe try to run a little bit more. We'll see. But looking forward to all things 2026. And we're starting this year off with a mini series, which if you've been following the Planning Pulse podcast, you're very familiar with the concept. We're going to dive into specific topics, spend a few episodes getting deeper and deeper into each one of those topics. And we're starting off 2026 with one of those topics that is on the top of everybody's mind, ML forecast technology. We're going to be talking about some product enhancements that are coming out down the line, but today we're going to be focusing on readily available technology that exists inside of Workday Adaptive Planning for ML forecast technology. So as you all are accustomed to within this podcast, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our content for the day. And I'm going to start sharing my screen now. And maybe, Tom, let me know if you're able to see my screen and we'll get rolling right along.
Yep. Looks good.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So when we're thinking about the ML forecast technology, again, readily available technology that exists inside of Workday Adaptive Planning, you can get there by going to the main menu, scrolling down to modeling, model management, and then within model management, as you can see, we've got this intelligent planning section. If you don't have predictive forecast or anomaly detection here, check your administrative settings, talk to your instance administrator, or contact us at Ikorio. We can help you get this configured as well. You see within predictive forecaster, it's very easy to get to, and it's going to look a little bit like this. Okay. Now, once you're inside of the predictive forecaster, you can create actual standalone forecasts. You can create schedules of forecasts. Today, we're going to be building a forecast for you live and on the spot, running that forecast and then seeing the output. But before I actually create or run this forecast, I want to show you what that model is going to look like that we're going to be forecasting. So throughout the course of this mini-series, you're going to see us doing the ML forecast for headcount, for attrition, for a number of different methods or a number of different use cases. Today, we're going to be focusing on the low-hanging fruit of what we see within financial planning or FP&A planning, and that's for our non-labor related operating expenses. So inside of this particular model, I've got the concept of trending operating expenses. Now, if you work in FP&A, you know that the concept of trending is taking a look at historic or previous actuals and then rolling forward based off of a trend within your work stream. That trend could be based off of rolling averages. As you can see here, I've got 3, 6, 9, 12-month averages. Could be based off of something like revenue or something like headcount. These all allow us a baseline for producing our forward-looking forecast. A new one that we're going to introduce you to today is going to be for this machine learning forecast. As you can see, I've got historic actuals in this planning model for my particular level sales north, for my new hire training expense for a particular vendor. So historic actuals coming in from our source system, whether that's Workday Financials, NetSuite, whatever our historic system may be or ERP may be. And then we're going to produce our forward-looking forecast for these plan periods, okay? We also have the ability, as you all know, to input drivers or assumptions for uptick or change over time that we would expect, whether that's vendor or GL specific, as you can see here, or maybe just global assumptions or a combination of both of those. So this model allows us to predict the future, start a baseline for our expenses, but maybe we want to go a little bit further in how we're predicting, really what we're going to say 2026 new hire training and vendor expenses are going to be. So here comes our machine learning forecast technology, and it looks something like this. I know, Tom, just from your background and from mine as well, when we talk with folks who work in finance, some of the fear or uncertainty that exists inside of the ML forecaster is,
Mhm.
I don't want to have to get in and deal with the algorithms. I don't know how the algorithms work. I don't,
Mhm.
I want to keep it simple. It's simple for me to go into Microsoft Excel and just put in a number and
Mhm.
times, 2%,
Right.
5%. That's a conversation you and I have all the time.
Oh,
Inside of
absolutely.
adaptive, yeah, inside of adaptive, the ML forecast, you're not getting into the algorithm. You're not getting into any of the changes. You're making a few selections from drop-down boxes, and then you're clicking run. So, Tom, let's walk through what some of these are, and maybe talk through some of the different
Yeah.
things that we need to consider as we're going into the ML forecast. But the first thing that we need to do is just select a name. Since we're in the Planning Pulse podcast today, that's what we're going to keep the name as for us. But this for our customers and people who are considering adaptive planning, this could be our 1 plus 11 or 2 plus 12. It could be a rolling forecast. Whatever the time of that forecast is, that's going to be your name. You can also use a brief description here as well. Now, when we get into the actual forecast piece, all we're doing is saying we want to forecast our trending operating expenses. Think back to our model that we had trending operating expenses for a particular version and for what period we want to do this for. So we know that we want to predict January 2026 through December 2026. Maybe we're going through our budgeting process and we want to do the entire year. Tom, do you have a lot of conversations where maybe you do a month or a quarter or half the year? Or does it kind of depend on maybe when the version starts or what the use case is?
Yeah, typically what I see is something along the lines of kind of an annual rolling. So, excuse me, as we move through their year as they roll the model forward. A lot of times, yeah, they want to keep that machine learning forecast rolling. So just moving it forward each year, rerunning it, keeping it going, so that as they move into the next fiscal year's budget, they've already got it rolling, they've got it running, they've got it working, and can just move on like business as usual.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what we're trying to do with the ML forecaster is business as usual. We want to keep the flow of information going. We don't want any downtime having to go back out to our team and ask them to update their
Yep.
budget. We want to give them a baseline and just say, okay, are there any tweaks or changes that we need to make? So 100% agree with you there. Now, after you've selected your planning model, what version you're trying to do this and what period you're doing this for, we just need to identify if there are any specifics or any filters that we want to apply to the forecasted data. In this case, we know that we are going to that specific account, number 7, machine learning forecast. It was one of our planning methods. We're looking at a particular level across all dimensions. So if we wanted to forecast for any other operating expenses or any other levels, we could do that here as well. And then the last thing that we need to note for now is this reference data. We want to know how much or how many actual periods we want to reference in our forecast. In this case, we're going to look back 4 fiscal years to be able to produce 1 year of forward-looking data. Now, typically, this is a 3-to-2 recommended ratio, so three
Yep.
years or 3 periods for every 2 periods that you're looking to forecast. In this case, 4 years to 1 year forecast shouldn't be a problem here for us. So now we've got 4 years. We're going to go ahead and run this forecast. As you can see, it's going to start to go into queue. You can see when it was updated, when it was last run. And again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to generate this line, this machine learning forecast line for FY 2026 for this level across all my expenses, all my vendors for this 2026 budget version. Now, as you may know, there was another section down here at the bottom as we were going through our selections. It's for advanced settings. Advanced settings allow you as a user to be able to select or utilize other ML algorithms if you wanted a little bit of a different result. A few of these, Tom, one of the things that I know that you like
Yeah.
to talk about is when you click on them, you can kind of get a little bit of a different
Yeah.
sort of informational blurb about them. Are there any of these specifically that maybe you recommend to your customers or any of them that you think may be worth talking about in more detail versus another?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we're finance professionals. So I don't know, the nuts and bolts of algorithms and writing them and understanding the nuances. So adaptive makes it really, really easy to find the one that'll fit for you. A few of the most common ones, the original ones, is NBeats. It looks at large data sets. We look at profit down at the bottom. That's another one that's commonly used. And so, that takes into a lot of like seasonalities and things like that that you might want to look into. But generally speaking, auto fit, that first selection up there, works perfectly well for 90% of the clients that I work with that want to have this functionality in their models. What the AutoFit's going to do is it's going to look at the data. It's going to look at your historical data primarily and see what are the different variables and then choose an algorithm that's going to best fit that data set. So it's really, really important that the historical data is accurate and clean because everything's going to be based off of that. And so using these algorithms, we can choose a specific methodology, or like I said, Workday provides us with an auto fit that'll look at the data and help pick one themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to know this, the auto fit, like you said, it fits 90%. When we first ran through this, didn't go through any of the advanced settings. We just, we don't need to. But if you wanted to come in and select a different algorithm for a different use case, if you wanted to start to layer in things like levers or any type of outside factors to the data, think of weather patterns or interest rates or anything like that. You can certainly do that with a number of these different algorithms, but you can also see that we can actually do this with weekly calendars as well. So one of the big use cases of ML Forecaster is looking at things for maybe like manufacturing companies, and they're looking at units and demand. So if you need to get down to that weekly basis, you can do that utilizing the ML Forecast tool that's available. And lastly, our lever sheets. Again, think of weather forecasts. Think of any type of outside factor that's going to, really have a say in what the predicted value is going to be. And of course, as you can see, if you have zeros or negatives that come through in your forecast and you want to eliminate any type of negative forecast, you could always have that set to 0. So let's go back and check on our predictive forecaster. It's already run for us. We've had success here. Very quick for us to run. Come back to our trending operating expense model. And we refresh to see the values that are going to populate inside. Here we can see we've got these newly populated values coming across looking at the year. Previously, we were at 620. ML forecast puts us around 645. With the global uptick assumptions and vendor GL assumptions of 2% and 1%, we're coming in saying we're about 664. It is important to note that, for all finance professionals, as we are going in and submitting what we're forecasting our expenses to be to leadership or to the board, we always want to have our hand on the steering wheel of what we're going to be submitting. So I always like to have this manual override line. Maybe you know that 99 is just not going to happen for February and you want to reduce that to 50. Whatever that change is, whatever that known value is that you need to put in, you can always put an override in. We can bring the actual total back down to, from 664 down to 615, a little bit closer in line with what we did last year based on known changes internally. So this is a brief look at the ML forecasting technology. We are going to be continuing within this mini-series a few more deeper topics as we get into workforce planning, as we get into attrition forecasting. Tom, anything that you would mention for the FP&A folks as they start to evaluate utilizing the ML forecast technology for something like non-labor related operating expenses?
I always encourage clients just try it. It's not gonna, ruin the models, ruin your data. It's something that can be an add-on tool, something that adds that value and adds the capability, but it's not going to be something that you have to give up other ways of doing it. You have your methodologies, you have your standard ways, but this can be something that, can go in parallel. You can try it, you can test it. And, as your confidence in and understanding in the output grows, then it becomes more of a staple of your process. So that's what I always encourage. Adaptive is really, really good at allowing you to have that, flexibility to try things without having to compromise anything else.
Yeah, and I liked kind of what you said there too. When we start talking about confidence and confidence metrics, we're going to dive into that within our mini series, talking a little bit about how you can gain confidence in ML forecast values that are predicted. Like you said, we don't want you to have to compromise the accuracy that you may be used to. What we're trying to do and what Workday is trying to do with the ML forecast technology is to make the forecasting process easier for you, put more time back into the analysis rather than the data aggregation. So Tom, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, Tom's first time guest, but he's going to be joining us more and more this year, and especially throughout this mini series. But You will see us again next week as we continue diving into ML forecast topics inside of Workday Adaptive Planning. You can plan on it.